The city was alive with the hum of 1,000 lights, each a flickering reminder of lives intertwined in ways no one truly understood. It was late, but the streets were still busy with people finishing their workday or heading out to the bars, the night's just beginning to take its hold. A light drizzle had begun, the kind that softened the edges of the world, making everything appear a little more distant. The faint scent of wet concrete mixed with the deep earthy fragrance of the trees lining the park. Inside a modest apartment building. On the 5th floor, Evelyn sat on her couch, staring out the window with distant eyes. Her apartment was neat, the kind of place that spoke of careful maintenance, no clutter, no stray papers on the counter. A woman who had her life together, or at least seemed to. Her husband, Daniel, was just finishing up his work in his study down the hall, his quiet typing the only sound breaking the silence of the apartment. The peace was almost unnatural, the air too still for a couple who had been married for nearly 10 years. Evelyn's fingers traced the rim of her wineglass, her mind not fully present. She had been looking at the same street for minutes now, yet the thought that tugged at her seemed to drag her attention somewhere else entirely, somewhere distant, but close. A name, James. James had been a part of her past, a former classmate from her university days. He had reappeared in her life, a few weeks ago, just a brief exchange at a mutual friends gathering. He was different now, older, more confident, but still undeniably the man she remembered. Funny how life sometimes pulled at the strings of the past, the ones you thought were long buried. She hadn't expected to feel so drawn to him again, especially when she had Daniel at home, a husband she had always thought she knew completely. Daniel was good to her, kind in ways that seemed almost too perfect. A job he loved, friends who admired him, a steady routine that allowed for little disruption. But in the depths of her heart, Evelyn knew something was missing. A spark she had once felt, the kind of connection that burned bright in the early years, had dimmed. It was subtle at first, but now it lingered in the air between them like a heavy fog, impossible to ignore. The door to the study creaked open, and Daniel emerged, his eyes scanning the room before landing on her. There was a familiar warmth in his smile, one that made her heart ache with guilt for the thoughts that had lingered in her mind. "Everything all right?" he asked, his voice warm, though there was an edge of concern in it. His usual calm demeanor held a certain weight to it tonight, a sign that perhaps he, too, felt the distance she had been sensing. "Just thinking," Evelyn replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "About old times, you know." Daniel nodded, stepping closer. "We all get nostalgic sometimes," he said, sitting down next to her. "But we have now, don't forget that." She turned her head slowly, meeting his gaze. There was an honesty in his eyes, a deep affection that she had once cherished but now seemed suffocating. She smiled faintly, grateful for his presence but unsure of the depths of her own feelings. "Of course," she murmured, reaching out to rest her hand on his. The contact was grounding, a reminder that she was here, in this moment, with him. Yet, beneath the touch, something stirred, a secret yearning she didn't know how to suppress. That night, as she lay beside him, the steady rhythm of Daniel's breathing beside her offered no comfort. Instead, it amplified the cold space between them, a growing chasm that she wasn't sure she could cross. She thought about James again, how his voice had lured her back into the past. It had been a fleeting moment, an innocent conversation, but the familiarity of it had awakened something she wasn't ready to confront. Over the next few weeks, the occasional message from James became something Evelyn couldn't ignore. It started with a few light-hearted texts, innocent enough at first. "How's life? Still painting?" A quick catch-up here and there. But as the days passed, the tone shifted, ever so subtly. He began asking questions that Daniel never seemed to ask. He noticed the little things about her, the things Daniel had stopped noticing long ago. It wasn't intentional, or at least she didn't think it was at first. But as James poured himself into their conversation, Evelyn found herself responding in kind. They met for coffee once. It was harmless, she convinced herself. Just two old friends catching up. But the moment their eyes met across the cafe, something shifted. A smile, just a flicker of something deeper, passed between them. It was as though the years that had separated them vanished in an instant. The conversation flowed easily, comfortable yet charged, and Evelyn realized she hadn't felt this alive in months. She laughed freely, her body warming in a way it hadn't in so long. When they parted, James' touch lingered just a moment too long. His eyes searched hers, and for a split second, Evelyn was paralyzed with a deep, unsettling awareness that something had just crossed a line. But she said nothing. The moment passed, and she told herself it was nothing, just a brief, fleeting connection. She had Daniel, and that was all that mattered, wasn't it? Yet, as days turned into weeks, their encounters grew more frequent, each one more intense than the last. It wasn't just coffee anymore. They spent hours talking, laughing, sharing secrets from their pasts that Daniel never knew. With every meeting, Evelyn found herself more entwined in James' presence, more distant from her own life, her own marriage. It wasn't long before James began to reveal his feelings that echoed in the silent spaces Evelyn had been trying to ignore. His words were gentle at first, laced with the quiet certainty of someone who knew the power of their own allure. "I've missed this," he'd say, his voice low, full of longing. "I've missed you." Every time he said it, something inside her stirred. She would turn away, look out the window, try to push it down, but it was becoming impossible to ignore. She had betrayed Daniel in ways she couldn't quite explain emotionally, certainly, and James knew it. He could see the cracks before she even recognized them herself.